Welcome, everyone. So excited to have you here. It's going to be a wonderful workshop. You're here to talk about prosperity power. What a great thing for a Wednesday night. Just me over here getting super excited. Well, I do want to go ahead and open our space. So thank you so much for being here. I'm super grateful. My name is Marta Siebenhaar, and tonight we are talking about prosperity power, unlocking the secrets of the law of karma. Now, this is a session that's designed for you, and I encourage you, if you feel like things aren't clear, raise your hand, speak up in the chat. This is interactive, although it's going to move very quickly. We have a lot to cover in the span of an hour. This is definitely for you. So please don't be shy if you are asking for coaching about a certain thing or just need clarity. We're here for it. So you are encouraged to go ahead and participate. All right, I just thought I'd grab a couple quotes here to start us off. Prosperity. Quote by Matshona Deliwayo. I hope I said that correctly. A seed today is a forest tomorrow. And I love the redwoods in California on the Pacific Northwest. And I just thought that that inspired me to share this beautiful photo. All right, so today we're here to explore, experience, and reflect. So we're going to talk about intentions in a little bit. We're also going to talk about what blocks prosperity and what are prosperity, karma, and the law of attraction. How are all of these things different? How do they work? We're going to get to how to plant seeds to harvest greater prosperity. And then we're going to do a visualization and a prosperity healing. We'll reflect, we'll recap, and do a Q&A. So if at any time you have any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand or to put your questions in the chat, but otherwise we'll just keep going. So that's our flow today. So I'm curious, and I would love for you to either share this in the chat, keep it to yourself, or share it. But what I'm really looking for is what would be the most impactful result possible from this session? So what is the best and highest place that tonight's energy, that tonight's information can achieve for you? And then I also want to ask you at the same time, do you believe you'll get that result? And if it's yes, then I encourage you to enjoy that. And if it's not, if you don't believe you're going to get that result, I think that's worth just stepping back and looking at. A lot of times when we have the inner skeptic that is coming to play, we're not actually realizing that we're blocking information from our higher self, information that is also guided by our intuition. If you're able to, I would encourage you to be open. What you hear tonight may be new information. It's again going to move very fast. All in all, there is going to be some new information, and I just encourage you to be open to it and have some expectations that are open, and maybe you'll get a good surprise. I see something in the chat. Kira would like to learn how to manage implicit and subconscious triggers and fears for money. Yeah, fantastic. We're going to talk a little bit about both of those things. So awesome. Yeah, Hedgen, your hand's raised. Go ahead.
So I'd like to identify for myself what my blockers are to prosperity and also identify why there might be fear in that reaching prosperity.
Yeah, I love that. Where do the fears come from? How might they have started? How can we get over them? Awesome. I see more in the chat. Being able to allow prosperity and abundance to enter my life and stop doubting my ability to fully receive. Yeah, the ability to fully receive is a real thing. We stop ourselves. We go halfway. There are a lot of possibilities for why that might be, and we're going to explain some of them. And certainly, this is by no means the most exhaustive workshop. We only have an hour here, so we're going to move through it. But I believe that we're going to cover many of these questions. So thank you for sharing. We also have Heather, knowing when I'm getting in my own way versus when to accept that they're institutional forces I shouldn't waste energy trying or being willing to change. such as knowing when to invest energy in shifting how I show up within work versus changing to or creating a different work environment. I totally hear you. Yeah, when is it a me thing and when is it something that's happening in the environment? How are these things shaping and impacting each other? All of that is super relatable. And I know that I've definitely felt those things definitely at work. And thank you for bringing it to the work context. I do business healing, but a lot of this stuff I find like whatever's happening inside of us also shows up at work. So when we're having challenges or we're feeling boxed in or we're feeling like we can't fully express who we are, often I found that when we start to look within and heal and release the things that are happening inside us, we start to have different results happening on the outside. So yes, I love this. And we may not get into this specific thing, but I think there are principles that you can apply to that particular situation. So thank you everyone for sharing. Okay, so just so we're clear, I am your coach and healer for this session. I believe in all of your possibilities, all of your dreams, and the highest and best version of you, even when you don't. So I also believe in your ability to receive and experience all of it. And that's part of why I asked you whether you believe you can get results even in this 1 hour session. Because if you're already like, yeah, I don't know, you're not being coachable. So I will never give up on all of the things that you're envisioning for yourself. I'm here for them and I believe that you can have them. So I'm committed and I want you to receive what you've come for. And now I invite you to also decide what you're going to do and what you're committing to for the evening. Coaching is a two-way thing. It is a sacred relationship, but it's also something that, we often need a thought partner. We need somebody to help us remember that we are awesome, help us remember that we can do hard things. So that's what I'm here to do tonight. So I'm Marta. I went from a music school student in New York City with a very regular balance in my bank of $7 or less. I have eaten ramen noodles. I have struggled. I became familiar with overdrafts. I really, really struggled in my 20s living in New York City with not much of a scholastic shield from real life in the big city. And now I run a multi-six-figure business helping hundreds of leaders use energy to do the same, meaning run successful businesses. So that's me. I'll talk a little bit more if there's time about some specific things that I struggled with throughout the years. All right, so how did this happen? How was I able to go from pretty much a poverty level of living to running the company that I run now, which is like the best possible version of my best and highest self? So I met my spiritual teacher, Master Choa Sui, and I learned about energy. This was in the late 90s. Nobody was talking about it. Nobody really thought that was a serious thing. That wasn't a career. Healing was not something that we talked about in polite society. Energy is also known as ki or chi or prana. So if you've heard about Tai Chi, that is an ancient practice of moving energy. So I studied pranic healing. And at that time, I happened to take a course with my teacher about prosperity energy. It was one of the most jarring experiences of my life in all of the best ways, because I had a growing up experience where I felt like I was destined to be prosperous. I moved to New York at age 18, responsible for my money, and I could not believe how expensive it was just to have daily life. And I got into this pattern of not wanting to spend money, stretching every dollar, often not eating at all, or eating one meal over the course of several days in order to save money. I got the poverty energy of the city as I was confronted all around me with huge prosperity, multi-million-dollar homes, and people wearing furs and going to the opera and Lincoln Center and all of that. And I could not have felt more uncomfortable at the time. And when I took this workshop, it required an investment personally that was pretty uncomfortable because I wasn't used to spending on myself other than food, and at that, the very, very basics. So when I actually decided to take the leap. It was the first time I ever invested in myself. And this practice has changed my life. What changed about it is I decided to test it and then start practicing it. And what I learned is this prosperity is a science. It is an exact science. It is something that you can practice and you can test. And I encourage everybody to do that. So now I want to share that with you. The question is why? For me, the answer is I meet amazing people all day, every day who want to do good in the world. And many of those people have money stuff. Many of those people have things that they grew up believing that limit them from fully self-actualizing. But if I can help one person, a group of people, a whole load of people who are good people to work through their money stuff, the whole world will benefit because that's one or many or a whole lot of people who are then living in their purpose, activating their gifts and talents and sharing them with the world. What is the downside of that? So for me, this is about helping people be more powerful. And that's what my career is about. So let's just do a little bit of exploration. What does it mean to be prosperous? According to Oxford Languages, being prosperous is being successful in material terms, flourishing financially, bringing wealth and success. For me, it's that. And it's also health, wealth, we talked about, wisdom, success, happiness, and purpose. And in my work as a coach and a healer, the number one thing where money issues show up is a fear of not being stable enough to pursue purpose. And when I look at the energy of what if and someday, to me, that's a toxic energy because assuming you have a long life, if you're on your deathbed and you're looking back and you remember what you didn't do because it didn't feel safe, but was really part of your purpose, that is going to be the seed of regret that poisons you at the end of your life. So if more people can feel more stable and recognize that stability does not come from outside of you, the more prosperous you're going to be. So for me, it's these things. So my question to you is, what are you here to shift? Tell me in the chat, please. And if it's not on the sheet, I'm also interested. Tell me what that is. Purpose, yay. Wealth. Limiting beliefs on what my body can or cannot do. Yeah, really good one. Thank you for that. And wealth. Yeah. Excellent. Awesome. If there are things on here that you are prosperous in that you haven't been paying attention to, like if you're a healthy person, your body is doing all right. If you feel like you've been successful or you've been happy, also take a moment and be grateful because those are the moments that we focus on the 20% that's not going well or isn't where we want it. And we forget that there's like 80% that is going pretty well. So I think that's worth looking at. All right, so working through some of the tension of the elements on the screen, yeah, that's a real thing. Can those things actually be in harmony, or is there always going to be a trade-off? Yeah, that's a big thing. Being deserving, yeah, that's a big one. We have some co-signatures on that one. Awesome. Thank you. So take a moment and just think about the most prosperous person you know. So who is this person, and what are 3 to 5 qualities that you think make them prosperous? And once you've done that, who is it? What are the qualities that make them prosperous? Ask yourself, how do you know they have these qualities? Like, how can you tell? What are the bits of evidence you have that they have these qualities? And then what have they been able to do because they have those qualities? They have a belief that they can attain and deserve to receive and inner confidence and power. Yeah. Prosperous people are often very confident and they believe that they can follow through, they can receive. Living in their purpose and shining their light in the world. Yeah, that's super powerful. Confident, no fear, generous. We talk a lot about being generous, but we don't think about what happens when other people are generous We get stuck on wanting to be more generous or overly being generous. And then there's an effect to that too. Also notice that they aren't afraid to spend and have fun. Yeah, this is part of the healing that my 19-year-old self needed to go through. Like, actually, skipping subway fare isn't going to make you rich, right? You're going to the East Village to have a $7 meal in an Indian restaurant that's all you can eat. It's not prosperity energy. So, yeah, I've had to learn that too. Being not afraid to spend and taking calculated risks. Super grounded, but also really exploratory, carves new paths that other people haven't before. Yeah, prosperous people are often confident enough to be visionaries, to take risks, to lead, and then able to have control in some aspects while embracing the unknown. We're going to talk a little bit about ways that you can create with the energies of the universe in terms of prosperity in the midst of the unknown. So we'll definitely get to that. Thank you all. This is great. So let's talk about energy. Energy is everything. And if you have ever worked with me or you've ever been up close with me, you know that I talk about energy all the time. Energy is, again, not something we talked about in the 90s or the 2000s or even the 2010s, but money is energy. Money doesn't mean anything. It just is energy. So you assign the meaning. And as a coach, I hear a lot of people who think of money as something outside themselves that other people control, that they're kind of at the mercy of what those other people decide or what their whims are, or just the tides of the universe that feel so out of reach. But we assign the meaning of money. And those assignments we came by very honestly and very early in a lot of cases, but you can shape and shift the energy and you can do it on purpose. So that's what we're doing tonight. That's what we're going to talk about. Can't talk about energy of money and prosperity without talking about root causes. So if you're not experiencing the results and the prosperity that you desire or feel like you could reasonably experience in this lifetime, we must examine the root causes. So with prosperity, I find you can treat the leaves, you can treat the stem, but you get the most effective results when you treat the roots. And why is that? Because some of these things are ancient, some of these things are deep, some of these things we can't explain, and our logical brain at some point peters out. We're not able to solve these things logically because they're not a logical root cause. But root causes can be healed. I know that because this is my work. This is what I do 100% of the time. When root causes are healed, the effects and patterns that result from those root causes are transmuted. That means that old patterns end. If you're on this call, you're a pattern breaker, which means you have the courage to forge a new pathway. You have the courage to start something new. So just in case that wasn't clear, that's a thing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. All right, there are 4 root causes. I'm going to go through each one of them in detail. And this is really going back to the beginning of our conversation when I talked about intentions and what is the most impactful result you could get. A lot of you were talking about how you feel and the fears. So one of the root causes for prosperity issues is limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs may sound familiar to a lot of us. This is the idea that there's not enough, there's inherent lack, or that we feel less than, we're not deserving, we're not worthy. This is a limiting belief. The someday poison, which I talked about, someday is toxic. Someday means that you believe on some level it could happen, but not enough that the energy can move and open up the pathway. Other limiting beliefs include more money, more problems, understanding or thinking about what wealth would mean for you. What would it mean about what motivates you? What would it mean about your reputation? What would it mean if people associated with you? A lot of people feel like when you are wealthy, it inherently means you're greedy. It inherently means you're selfish. It inherently means you're above the law or you're trying to hurt people because you have means or because it's not fair and like all these other things. And also that if you are wealthy, you're not spiritual. A lot of us on the spiritual journey struggle with this one. And then there's also a limiting belief that wealth should be criticized or wealthy people should be criticized. When, again, money's just energy. There are a lot of reasons that people with wealth are experiencing that energy, but we're going to talk a little bit more about why criticism is not a good thing, no matter who we're talking about criticizing. And this is really, for me and my family experience, I feel like I was raised to look for stability outside of myself. And there's nothing wrong with that thought, but when it prevents you from doing your purpose, it is actually pretty destructive, because the only stability from a soul perspective is that you are the soul. So you're beyond your body, you're beyond your feelings, you're beyond your mind and your thoughts. All of that you experience, and you have those things, but that is not the true essence of you. And when or if anything ever were to happen where your health were impacted, your family were impacted, your finances were impacted, your work was impacted, you would figure out how to be stable from your inner resources. You would rally and you would figure it out. So if we recognize that stability is actually a delusion when it comes from other people, we become free to see that we create our own stability, whether or not you're in a safe job. Yeah, I worked with orchestras for years. I was trained to be an orchestral musician. I have a master's degree in orchestral performance. I was told you can be in an orchestra and be successful, or you can fail. There was literally one pathway to success. And I tried that out and it didn't work for me. The question was then, okay, if orchestra means success, why are all these orchestras failing? So even the most stable looking jobs can fail based on things that we don't see. So my point is just stability has always come from inside you. And if anything ever were to happen, it really would be okay. Yeah, stability fear is huge. You feel like when one little thing happens, the entire rug will get pulled out from under me. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. And we're going to talk a little bit about surprises and the unknown, and like how to control versus not what's happening. But stability is definitely an inner practice. And I would encourage you, if stability is something that is coming up for you as we talk, any of you, I would spend some time really embracing and taking an inventory of all the ways in which you create your own stability, and all the ways that, even if it's been money, what you were doing in order to be in a place to receive money through that channel. It's a powerful exercise. Second root cause, generational patterns. What happens in generational patterns? We learn by example healthy things or not healthy things, and we replicate. So this is picking up patterns and programs from our parents, from our families, from the people in our communities. This is what we learn as we grow up. The idea of living paycheck to paycheck, and that's how it's always going to be, that may be a limiting belief that is then passed on. So again, not all of these are super defined and separate. Some of them are hooked to others. And that's the thing, when we look at root causes, sometimes there's one, sometimes there's many, but they're all preventing that flow from happening. Debt is a generational pattern. That's often something that if your great-grandfather went bankrupt, there's often somebody else in the family that will go bankrupt. So debt or bankruptcy, we learn these patterns from our ancestors. And believe me, there's no disrespect to the ancestors. They did the best they could. Our current ancestors are doing the best they can. Nobody is choosing any of this stuff, but a lot of this is unconscious and we pass it on without even being aware. So when we start to use energy, we can be aware of these things and start to divest them of their power. Another generational pattern is overgiving or taking responsibility for things that are not yours. So being overly responsible, like volunteering and finding yourself in situations where you're caregiving, or finding situations where you're responsible for something that's really not your work. That is something that we pick up from people, often women, who are heart-centered and also just don't say no, right? Not saying no. Boundaries, healthy boundaries, that's something we learn. Illnesses, often cancer, kidney issues, heart issues, liver issues, blood issues. Often these are hereditary. They don't have to be. Your genetics are your blueprint. They're not your destiny. And when we start to work with the energy of the universe, we can start to disrupt some of these when we understand the root cause of the illness. And generational patterns can happen at all income levels. So there's somebody who's a multimillionaire who can be broke, and somebody who's truly living below the poverty line who's broke. How much money you make does not mean you're prosperous. So when we see poverty energy at all income levels, we know something else is happening, not money. Because you've got plenty of money to cover your expenses and more, and yet you still don't have prosperity, there's something energetic that's happening. And again, we learn this and we pass it on. Third root cause is life experience or experiences. These are often very positive or very negative, and they usually kind of rewire our brain as to our growing up, our generational patterns. Usually these teach us that either risk is rewarded or punished. We then create a new pattern of energy and thinking and beliefs around that fear of reward or fear of punishment. Some of us are afraid to succeed. So fear of reward is a thing, right? And often these life experiences that push us one way or the other, these new beliefs that happen, they can often happen as the result of trauma. So when I moved to New York, I was traumatized. I didn't have the language for that at the time. The idea of just being in music school felt like a lot of trauma. Just the sheer amount of criticism was shocking, right? But there's also opportunities that we have. I was talking with somebody who made a bad investment and now they're afraid to invest in anything. And it's like that taught them a new way about approaching investments. So somebody says, I was shocked to learn that about pro basketball players who make 12 million per year plus and live paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. So what do we learn unless we have some sort of something to jam the frequencies that we have picked up and we have perpetuated consciously or unconsciously? Often we'll just repeat what we've been exposed to. Okay, fourth root cause is karma. People get all weird and freaked out when I start talking about karma. Karma is just cause and effect. If we were to say, that person's so lucky, they have such good luck, I would encourage you to swap that out. And I don't remember where I heard this, but I like it, so I'm repeating it with thanks to whoever I heard it from. Swap out the idea of luck with karma. That person has such good karma, right? Karma can be positive and karma can be negative. Karma is an exact science. This is where the science part comes in. Because when we use karma as a tool, we can use it as an actual measurable energy in our lives. So for me, karma is something that happens and shows itself over multiple lifetimes. We're in the current lifetime by design. Many of us don't remember past lifetimes or other life experiences we've had elsewhere. When I get into energy work, lifetimes always come up. If you don't believe in reincarnation, that's totally fine. Take this with a grain of salt. You can believe what you can believe. But I encourage you to be open. For me, multiple lifetimes is the only model that makes sense for me to understand why this world is so random. I think some of the random things that we see are actually just karma playing out. Karma is there to help us learn lessons. So karma is not there as a judge. Karma is not there as a punisher. Karma is just there to teach us. And this is where it's positive or negative. Again, it doesn't mean anything. It's just energy. We create the story. But do you know anybody who says they're not lucky, or somebody who's complaining all the time, or somebody who always has a physical issue? These folks have had karma deal out some negative lessons that then they have taken to be true. And that's fine, but they're not going to come to new energy until they learn the lesson that they actually do have some power. So the idea here is what you sow, you will reap. This is also the golden rule. Teach others as you would like to be taught. So going back to those, I don't know how to deal with the unknown, because maybe someday something that's unexplained and negative will happen to me. This is what we're talking about. So that's the experience of karma. Karma just may shut a door. Karma may interrupt us. Karma may take away somebody dear to us. It doesn't mean anybody did anything wrong. It just means that there's a cause you can't see. You're just seeing the effect. It's a very exact science in that way. So the best thing I found is not to fear negative results. It's to work through the blocks and use karma on purpose. Also, in my work, sometimes I do hypnosis. Mainly, I do just energy healing and coaching. But I found that people in other lifetimes have taken vows of poverty, have taken vows of chastity, have taken vows of loyalty. And all of these things can show up in our lives in an unexplained way. I was just yesterday talking to somebody who believes in past lives, and we were talking about karma. And she said, I have my cabinet around me. I am convinced I was a queen in a prior lifetime because otherwise I can't explain why this person has stuck with me as my right-hand person through thick and thin in a totally illogical way. Whatever happens, they're always there as my counsel. Like, this is my counsel, this is my right-hand strategic advisor. There's no other way that she could explain it other than that. And also vows of poverty. If you were a monk in a prior lifetime and you took a vow of poverty, sometimes the soul takes that so seriously, it downloads into your next lifetime. So what does that mean? That means that no matter what you do, you can't hold on to money. Because by design, you're not karmically entitled to it because you made this vow. Now, those vows from other lifetimes, those are things that are remnants and seeds that came through. Those can be healed and released. So that's not a death sentence. That's not a financial sentence. All of these is just energy. And because it doesn't belong in this lifetime, we can bring it back to where it belonged with energy. Energy is a tool to neutralize negative karma, and energy is a tool to energize positive karma. I'm going to stop sharing and just ask if anyone has any questions. All right, we'll keep going. So let's talk about karma. The universe does not carry debts. It always returns back to you what you gave it. So this felt really right and really real to me. And when we talk about karma, a lot of the karma that we're seeing in our lifetime is karma that is coming due now because we created it now. And those unexplained things that happen are sometimes karma that comes from other lifetimes and experiences that the seeds were planted a while ago, but then they're coming due now. We can't ever anticipate or avoid that situation, but if there's a debt to be paid, karma will insist on payment. And then Paramahansa Yogananda said, before you act, you have freedom, but after you act, the effect of that action will follow you whether you want it or not. That is the law of karma. And again, this is not meant to scare anybody. We're just talking about energy, and we're talking about karma as an exact science. So last thing here, prosperity. The key to prosperity in my mind is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And the reason for me that this is it is that I believe on some quantum level, we are all connected. We're all part of the same energy. So karma is an exact science because when you do harm, harm will come back to you because we're all connected. So for me, the idea is you're not treating your enemy as your friend because you're trying to trick the universe. You're trying to cultivate the loving kindness, generosity, and understanding that just as we're in a human experience with limitations in our thoughts and our words and our actions and our feelings, there are others who also are experiencing the effects of that. So if we're all connected on some cosmic level, we feel the effects that we put out. So this is just about being aware of the energy we're putting out, the choices we're making, and looking to make the best possible choices that are generous and loving and prevent harm. Does that make sense? Okay. So prosperity and the law of karma. This is what we're talking about tonight. This is the heart of this workshop. So to work with the law of karma, you want to focus on the end result or the effect that you desire and work backward to create the cause. You want to create the right causes that match the right effects. Be exact. I'm going to say this in the meditation, but I'm going to say it here too. You don't plant corn and get mangoes. If you want money, you have to be generous with money. Whatever it is you want to receive, you must learn how to share, because it is really that in giving we receive. If we're all connected, what you put out comes back to you. What are the things that we want to experience? And then you match your actions, your thoughts, and your words to those causes that will bring about the right effects. So be exact. If you have a heart problem, maybe help somebody who has a heart problem. If you have a fear of heights, give to an organization that helps people with fear of heights. The idea is if you want to neutralize something negative, and again, a lot of the negative stuff, we don't know what it is. Somebody's keeping track. We're not keeping track. We don't know because we're here in this lifetime to focus on what we're here to focus on right now. So if you want to neutralize something negative, you want to think about what is the antidote you can create. And you don't have to know what karma you have that's negative karma in order to create positive karma. Just think about what you want to receive and work backwards. So if you want to receive money, you want to receive accolades, you want to receive, I always say, like, as a coach, if you want great clients, you have to help give other people great clients. It's just the way that it works. So if you want somebody to be emotionally generous, you have to learn to be emotionally generous. In a book club that I run, we read the 5 love languages a little while ago. 5 love languages essentially is seeding positive karma in the ways that your partner likes to receive their positive karma. So sharing if helpful. So remember that what you want to receive, you must give. All right. What about the law of attraction? The idea is where attention goes, energy flows. The law of attraction is fantastic. It works. And often I have found it breaks down at some point if you don't actually address the root causes. That's why when we heal those root causes, our results change. If we want to manifest great things and we just keep hoping and manifesting in our thoughts and in our minds, and we do the action of writing it down, we feel it, we call it in, there's still a good chance we're not calling that in at this moment. And sometimes that's a timing thing, but often I find it's because we have a limitation we're not aware of. We have a generational pattern we haven't healed. We have a belief system that doesn't match us actually receiving that thing. So we do energy work in order to address the root cause and not just work on the stem, because the more you try to manifest and fit into a container that is full of trauma and full of generational ancient seeds of trauma, the less room there is for that to come in. So for me, law of attraction goes once we have really healed and released the karmic roots of some of these root causes of some of these challenges in manifesting. All right, so karma. Gravity is a law, karma is a law. When you resist a law, you're powerless. Try to resist gravity for a minute. You're going to fail, right? I'm up here 6 stories and Biscayne Bay is below us. If I try to defy gravity, it's not going to go so well, right? But when you work with the law, you are empowered and you can influence and resolve negative karma on purpose. All it takes is simple, easy, repeated actions. You can do them privately in the space of your mind, in the space of your own bank account, in the space of your own journal. What we're talking about is that. So prosperity energy is subtle energy. Sometimes people can sense subtle energy through their bodies. And when I do healing, subtle energy is what I work with. Some of you may be familiar with the chakra system. The chakras are just energy centers that sense and are made of subtle energies. So when we talk about prosperity energy, we're talking about the root chakra. We're talking about basic safety. We're talking about money. We're talking about purpose. We're talking about our ability to feel safe in our body, in our environment, to have shelter and food and our basic needs. But a lot of the people that I'm working with, when we have prosperity challenges, it's because there's some sort of energetic block, whether that's from any of the root causes in energy form. There's a block in the root chakra that can be healed. It's energetic, it's subtle energy. It can be released through subtle energy. We're not going to talk about the chakras. I just felt like sharing that in case it was helpful. So we're going to do a healing. Before we start, I have an assignment for you. Energy follows thought. So what is it you want to receive and experience around prosperity? What is the fruit you would like to harvest? Then I'd like you to look at what are the causes or seeds, thoughts, words, and actions are a good place to start, that will logically yield that effect or that fruit. So if you were to work backwards, you say, I want to make $200,000 this year. What are the thoughts, words, and actions? What are the seeds that can logically yield that fruit? So what are the thoughts you would need to think? What are the ways that you're going to need to direct yourself? What are the actions you're going to need to take in order to do that? Maybe it's, I want to find a great team member, or I want to resolve the tension I feel in the workplace, something that somebody brought up earlier. What is the fruit you want to experience? Maybe it's fulfillment, maybe it's satisfaction. What is the logical outcome that you can repeat over and over in a small way that will bring you eventually to that fruit? How can and will you plant those seeds on a regular basis? This is definitely constancy of aim and effort. You don't grow a mango in a day, right? You don't plant corn and harvest it in a week. Prosperity is energy that takes time, and karma often takes time. So what are you going to do to plant those seeds regularly? And what will need to shift and end? This is probably the most important thing we'll talk about today. What will need to shift and end for you to actually receive that fruit, to receive those effects? What in you needs to be let go, transformed, healed? What root cause do you need to pay attention to and do some work around? And then just because it's fun and I'm a coach, if you want to take this seriously, I mean, definitely you can screenshot this, but think about how will you be accountable to taking these small actions? In a workshop environment, it's great. We go home, we forget, right? Nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to heal these things, be accountable. It's actually kind of fun. All right. So let's move some subtle energy while you visualize I will heal. And I would love for you to notice while the healing is happening, any sensations or energy moving in your body as we go. All right, so I'm just going to take a moment and center myself. All right. Today we're going to do a mini prosperity healing. I'm going to guide you through a visualization, and I'm going to do some healing while you're at it. All you have to do is just relax, get in a comfortable position, make sure you don't have any of your limbs crossed, and let's get started. So first, I'd like you to close your eyes, and I'd like you to pinpoint one single thing, a belief or a habit, maybe a practice, a thought or a feeling you're committing to let go of around prosperity. Just trust the very first thing that comes to mind. It doesn't need to be complex. And now, as you settle in to the chair where you're sitting, really feel your body settle and relax into the place where you are. And reconnect with that energy of that thing, that belief, that habit, that practice, that thought or feeling around prosperity that you're committing to let go of. Imagine you're taking a sample of that energy, just collecting it in a petri dish. And you could look at it under a microscope, pretend you're looking through a microscope, or you could tune into the energy of it. And I'm going to ask you, how does that sample of that thing, that energy that you're looking to let go of, how does it look? How does it feel? How does it taste? Try and sense the quality of it. Is it thick? Is it dense? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it bouncy? Is it pleasant? Is it not pleasant? What you're doing is reconnecting with the real energy of that thing that you have pinpointed. All right, so now disintegrate and erase that sample. Just imagine you're throwing it to the sun and it just disintegrates. Now I'd like to invite you to imagine a screen in front of you. It doesn't have to be a big screen. It can be about the size of a sheet of paper or even smaller. I invite you to project the energy of that thing, that belief, that habit, that principle, that thought or feeling that you're looking to let go of. Project it directly onto that screen. Keep projecting it, keep projecting it, and keep projecting it. Keep going until you feel it is completely encased within the screen, until it is completely out of you and completely on the screen. Keep going and keep going. When there's no more left and it's all on the screen, I'd like you to imagine a blue eraser, like one of those blackboard erasers, but it's blue. Go ahead and take that eraser and erase, 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 erase the screen. Erase that energy that's on the screen. Erase, erase, erase. Keep going. Erase, erase, erase. When it's completely gone, I'd like you to do that again. Project the energy of that thing, that habit, that belief, practice, thought, or feeling you're committing to let go of onto the screen. Keep going, keep going, keep going until it is completely on the screen. And once you feel it's been completely poured onto that screen, take your blue eraser and erase. Erase, 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 erase. Now imagine the screen a third time and project that directly onto the screen. Keep projecting, keep projecting, keep projecting, keep projecting until it is all out. It is all there on the screen. Take your blue eraser and erase, 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 erase. It is now completely disintegrated. Now, look back to the fruit of the thing that you want to harvest. What is the thing that you would like to call in regarding your prosperity? That's the fruit that we're talking about. When you plant corn, you get corn. When you plant mangoes, you get mangoes. You don't plant mangoes and get corn. You plant mangoes and you get mangoes. So now, see yourself, imagine yourself going into a seed store and selecting the seeds of that fruit that you want to plant. Whatever it is that you're calling in around your prosperity. Browse the shelves. Notice what it's like to be in that store. Notice all the different seeds that are possible for you. Anything is there for the taking. All it takes is a little bit of intention. Really enjoy that selection process. Notice what draws your attention. And when you've arrived at the right one, the right seeds that are going to yield the fruit that you're looking for, take them off the shelf. And now let's zoom forward through the purchase process and imagine you're in a huge garden. It feels really, really good to be there. In this garden, you notice some seeds in motion. You notice fruits and vegetables and beautiful flowers that are ready to be harvested. You also see open spots. And you remember and appreciate all of the seeds that have lived out their full life cycles in this garden. Really notice and appreciate how fertile and abundant this garden is and has been. and has always been. Just take in the glory of this garden. The garden is you. It's your life, full of potential, full of possibilities, and full of lots and lots of fertile energies. There's a whole body of work that's come from it. Seeds, seedlings, plants, harvests. Constantly, there's something there getting ready for harvest. Constantly, there's something there being harvested. It's a beautiful cycle. And now's the time to plant your new seeds. Feel appreciation for these seeds and the harvest they will bring. These seeds that you're planting are powerful. They know just what to do. They are brilliant and very reliable. They are full of wisdom. These seeds know exactly what to do. When you plant the seeds, they sprout. Tend to them, and they will deliver a magnificent harvest. Whisper to them good, loving messages. Tell them what you are excited about that they're going to be creating with you and for you. Imagine your words activating their potential to the fullest, and maybe even better results than you could possibly imagine from where you stand. See them doing exactly what they're meant to do. Then water them. Let the sun do its thing. Imagine the sweetness of the harvest and watch as those seeds grow and mature before your eyes, like a time-lapse video. Notice how delicious it is to see those seeds come to life, come to fruition right before your eyes. Take in that feeling of nature, trusting nature that it just knows exactly what to do. Now, notice that harvest, those fruits, those vegetables, those flowers that you have planted that have come to fruition, they have a special message for you to remember. Listen, tune in, and receive that message. You will remember it, and trust the very first thing that comes to mind. Receive it fully and say thank you. Take it into your heart and absorb it. Now it's time to go. See that garden and that harvest. See all of the seeds that you've planted, even the ones that have been planted and have not yet come to fruition. Acknowledge and feel gratitude for all of it. And when you're ready, you can step out of the garden and drift away with love in your heart. And you can come back to the place where your body is and gently move your fingers and your toes. Come back to your waking consciousness and slowly, gently open your eyes. Now take a few minutes to write down what your experience was, including the message that you received. Just take a few moments and write down what you remember that you received. You can pause the video. So I would love if anyone would like to share about what you experienced. Great. Fantastic. Anyone feel or sense energy moving, shifting, something around your face? Yeah, Adrian. Okay, great. Yeah, Jamie felt around her head. Great. Awesome. All right. Message you heard was get out of your own way, but the house still feels a little sticky. Yeah, I got that. Sometimes the how is not available to us till we let go. So I hear you on that. And I'm going to share with you at the end the link to the video that I created that I was just sharing the audio from. Feel free to use that again. and as many times as you'd like. My business is a healing business, and the first message with that was that healers need healing too. Oh my gosh, yes. Big message was it's already done. Yeah, part of this is trust fall with the universe, right? When we start to lean into some of this healing, it's like, I don't see the how, I don't see the security, I don't see the confirmation yet. But when you start to tune in and trust yourself more, you will be guided. You will get the messages. It's the doubt that is part of our little self, not our big self, not our highest self. So that's normal. And also, it doesn't need to stop there. Yeah, let go of the mindset that I don't have enough. That's a practice. So all of this we're talking about is a practice. Super powerful, though. Super powerful. Awesome.
I'm gonna say it out
Yeah.
loud. So I had this feeling, you know, when you watch those princess movies where somebody is like she didn't know she was a princess and then she found out and all of a sudden she like has this palace and everything is perfect and her life is now all the problems are gone. That's kind of the feeling that I got from this message was like you have this abundant inheritance and it's already yours.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, and that's kind of like you can go back to the garden. Maybe everybody has princess energy over there. Yeah, Hannah says she got chills. That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, so what if we could just have peace knowing that we actually have the magic wand and it's not time if it's not happening. And that's where like we can't get to the how until we let go of what's been blocking. So all of this is beautiful. And princess energy is real, right? I love it. Okay, so just to recap, prosperity is the energy of thriving. There are 4 reasons it may be blocked, stuck, or slow. Your most powerful tool in transforming your prosperity is working with the law of karma, planting positive seeds regularly that match the fruit you desire to harvest. And for those of us, myself included, who are like, but what's the how and when's the when? And like, when is it ready? You can't keep looking in the earth to see if your seeds are happening. If you planted corn, you're going to get corn. And when it's time, you can't rush the process. You can, however, slow it down by trying to check in too often. You can, however, slow it down by doubting. You can, however, slow it down by just not trusting yourself. That's the number one thing that I've learned in the last 3 years. I don't know if I have the answers always, but I know they show up when it's time. So for me, it's about cultivating presence and tuning out things that are giving me information that stresses me out, that feels bad, and that is not aligned with what I know to be true on some level that is not logical. And all of this is, again, a trust fall with the universe. But when you plant these seeds on a regular basis that match the fruit you want to harvest, eventually, like if you have a wheat field, you have a wheat field and then you plant corn, you still have wheat, you still have corn, you have wheat and corn for a little while there. Eventually, when you keep planting these seeds, you're going to have the right crop. So if you have a wheat field, eventually you plant corn, eventually it will be only a cornfield. But there's this discomfort in the middle where like maybe there's a little bit of the old energy and there's a little bit of the new energy. And that space is the space where healing happens. So any questions? Yeah. That's a no, Hedgen.
Oh, you actually just answered my question, but I do want to relate it back to, I guess, the concept of karma. So I
Yeah.
had typed this question out before, and the question was, at what point do we assess how karma is working in our lives? So, like you just mentioned, you don't check in like the seeds all the time because it can slow the process. But then does that, and you also mentioned before that if we want to receive, we must give. But does that ultimately require us to be open to recognizing that we are actually receiving what we have given? Um, is it a trust thing, as you also just mentioned? Because I am actually completely new to the concept of most of what you shared with us today.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
It's a great question. It's a great couple of questions. Thank you for that. Yeah. The idea is over time, we can shift and change things that have been normal to us. when we start to practice something new. And that's where, if we go back to this and we really focus on number 2 and we do an inventory, how much of the fears that I feel are effects of something I can't put my finger on? Eventually, if you plant seeds of fearlessness through mindset work, through energy work, through meditation, through a whole bunch of pathways, eventually you're going to not be fearful anymore. So a lot of this is just like, where do I have the power to plant new seeds if I notice the results are not aligned with what I want? And for me, it's like, if you want to be generous and you want generosity to come back to you, you have to think about, what are the ways in which I'm exercising generosity? And maybe how, if I want to be financially abundant, maybe I start donating to a cause that I care about, or a cause that's related to family pain, or a cause that's related to something I struggle with, generously and abundantly. Part of the concept of tithing and service is that you can give the thing that you want through money or an act of kindness. But how often are you doing that? So as a healer, my business is a service-based business. I do a number of free sessions every week, every month. And that's because I want healing to be accessible to everyone. And also, I don't want to work with somebody unless they've had a healing with me and they know what it's going to be all about. All of you have had a healing with me. So you've experienced a little bit of that energy. But it's a practice of mine that every month I will send money to organizations or causes that either impact my business or impact myself or my family. And I just bake that in as a regular thing that I do. So I do service and I do tithing very consistently. And in terms of my practice of that over time, that's been very powerful. And that has actually helped me move through a lot of my limiting beliefs, just because of having to show up and do that often. So this is where, like, repeated small actions, if you give $2 a week to somebody in need, that's a practice, and the seeds of good karma from that will start to accumulate. So what we're looking to do is find, when you are experiencing lack or loss or fear, there's a debt there. So you want to look at, what is the root cause of the debt, like, that actually matches the fruit that you're experiencing. Like, what is the thing that is causing my suffering? And then you want to find if there's a way that you can regularly contribute toward the relief and neutralization of that by planting a new seed and doing that regularly. It's a great question. I hope I answered it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Sure. So anyone else have questions? So how do I work? If you haven't worked with me before, I do one-to-one coaching and healing, business healing. I do group programs, I do speaking, and I do corporate work. Mainly, I work one-on-one with people, and I do group programs. I do have an upcoming group program called Pathway to Prosperity. We're going to go into monthly healings, generational healings, prosperity labs. We'll have community accountability. We will practice prosperity with guidance, heal and shift your results. I have one spot left in this program, and that starts in May. If you would like to stay in touch, my website is here. There's also a MailChimp link, which I'll put in the chat. And then my socials are Instagram and YouTube at @the_business healer. I want to thank you. And my wish for you always is that you be super prosperous and super happy. Thank you all. Pleasure to be with you. Much love, and bye for now.